Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Jones with FullPlateLiving, and I'm so excited to have you with us today in our workshop on healthy habits for life. And we have Dr. MaryEllen Eller, who's a board-certified adult psychiatrist, sports psychiatrist, medical director, and expert witness. And she is a board certified psychiatrist specializing in integrative mental health, lifestyle medicine, and performance optimization. She combines evidence based psychiatry with a whole person approach to help individuals build resilience and lasting well being. Dr. Eller has expertise in innovative treatments for mood disorders, is the co founder of Elevated Therapy and Remission Psychiatry, and serves as regional medical director for Redial. And Steven Mauro is actually the Director of Operations for Ardmore Institute of Health, and we're so excited to have him presenting today. Steven brings more than a decade of experience in behavioral health, counseling, clinical leadership, and organizational strategy. His work focuses on advancing whole person care, improving health outcomes, and integrating behavioral health into mainstream healthcare. Throughout his career, he has provided counseling and behavioral health education in inpatient, community, school-based, and military settings, while also leading programs, evaluating outcomes, and supporting innovating approaches. So I'm so excited to have you both with us today, and I look forward to see what you tell us about creating and keeping healthy habits for life.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. We appreciate that intro. One of the things briefly, and Dr. Eller, feel free to jump in. One of the things we want to share with everyone here is kind of the takeaway message we want you to have at the end of our discussions. And that's essentially, we want to be able to work to the point where we can change the conversation that we have with ourselves when food enters the room. We want to be able to move away from this dichotomous black and white, good, bad, conversation that oftentimes gets a little persecutory, and move into the conversation that's more, what am I putting on my plate? How am I feeling about what I put on my plate in terms of helpful versus not helpful? You want to add anything to that, Dr. Eller?
Yeah, I think when we step back and we look at just the different stages of change, or when there's something that we want or we're motivated to do, what helps make things stick the longest? And what we've learned over the past 20 plus years of really studying motivation is that intention matters more than anything else. Sometimes we have to do the right thing for the wrong reason, right? Sometimes that's the best place to start. But the ultimate goal is to get to a place where we're making the right decision for the right reason. And when we can combine those things, that can lead to long-lasting change and puts us in a place where we can continually evaluate if what we're doing today is the same things that we want to continue to do tomorrow, if they're meeting our goals, if it's serving its purpose, or if we need to reevaluate. So really changing the conversation again, trying to shift away from good, bad, right, wrong, and trying to shift towards that mindset of focusing more on intention. As long as we have our intentions correct, all the other pieces are going to fall into place.
Awesome, thank you. One other quick theme, or I guess two quick themes you might hear Dr. Eller I mention or reference or go back to is a kind of continuous process or a continuous thinking state of kindness and curiosity with yourself when we're looking at changing these conversations. Another thing I want to remind everyone, please, we haven't changed the slides yet. Please feel free to engage us in the chat. If you have an example you wanted to share in the chat, we'd love to hear from you as well as we chat. Brief mission statement again from Ardmore Institute of Health. Our real goal is we really do truly look to enrich people's lives and enable them to live more meaningful and purpose-filled lives with their experiences. Along with Full Plate, our goal is to add more whole, unprocessed fiber foods that lead to big health outcomes. So why does change feel so hard? We found a study showing that obviously 40% of adults achieve and maintain goals. And I think the bigger elephant is in the room is that from this study is that 60%, it looks at the 60% failure rate. And we know that we know that healthy foods are whole and unprocessed, and we know that I love the example. We know that broccoli is better for us than cinnamon rolls, right? It's not a knowledge problem, and it's a emotional relationship process that we have to recognize the role that stress plays when stress enters the equation, and really being true to ourselves to recognize that, hey, cinnamon rolls are probably more comforting than broccoli. But being able to recognize that this is a behavioral, emotional approach, it's not a knowledge problem. People know what to do, and we want to be able to unlock the emotional connection with the plate.
I've had a lot of opportunity to work in inpatient substance use, and there is a lot of correlation between food and how food influences the reward pathways. There's a lot of similarities with addiction, but it's easy to get in conversations where people want to nitpick and argue over like what food choice is healthy, what diet strategy is the healthiest, what's the best. If we step back and we just think about the process of reward and that addiction circuit in our brain, right? I don't think there's anybody who's going to sit down and argue with me the idea that like meth and cocaine is healthy, right? Paired with, I have yet to help somebody detox off of meth and cocaine who looked me in the face and are like, yeah, I'm doing this because it's good for me. We know it's not, right? We are constantly doing things. So many components of our daily habits are things we do because we're getting some benefit from them that maybe we're not fully aware of. And if I'm working with somebody who wants to stop, using substances of abuse like meth or cocaine, the real question is, what is it doing for me? Not, do I know that this thing is bad or not? That's not even a very valuable part of that motivational equation. We usually start from a place of knowing that. But what we often don't pay enough attention to is, what is that thing doing for me? Because if all I do is try to stop doing that bad thing, and I am not aware of the good things that I was getting from it, whether that's social connection, in the world of food, is that emotional comfort? Is this the social ties? Is this the group of people that I enjoy spending time, or the memories that this food reminds me of from a time when life was simpler, right? There are many components in that reward circuit of our brain that get activated when we bring food into the equation. And a lot of us, because we have to eat to stay alive, a lot of us have gotten in the habits of just eating out of convenience, eating out of habit because this is what I do at this time of day, and spending less time thinking through, what is this thing actually doing for me? Or when I'm craving this food, asking why. Is it because my body needs a cinnamon roll? Is that why I'm craving this cinnamon roll? Or is my brain telling me that I need more of the environment that I remember eating the cinnamon rolls in the past?
Exactly. And the cinnamon roll may bring you back to it being a 7-year-old sitting at your grandmother's kitchen table and smelling the cinnamon rolls. And now my mouth is watering because cinnamon rolls are delicious, but you get the smell, you get the family, you get that warm, cozy blanket. And so being able to recognize that, and I think you have a great segue, Dr. Eller, to the next slide, of talking about change and how we can achieve that. Do you want to go ahead and introduce this stages of change to our group?
Yeah. So stages of change is something that kind of emerged out of the field of substance use, working with people who had a thing that as a society we all agreed on was not a great thing, and helping them get to a point of being able to make healthier or less destructive decisions for themselves. And when we sit and we do an evaluation, or as we think about any component of wanting to make a change, right? The first step in that process is there a change that I actually want to make, right? And that's this kind of pre-contemplation stage, right? If I don't think what I'm doing has any issue or any negative impact in my life, then I'm probably in this pre-contemplation stage. There's nothing that you're going to say. There's no knowledge you're going to give me. There's nothing that's going to push me to being ready to make that change right away. Again, the conversations around food and healthy diet, at least in the United States, generally has much less to do with knowledge. So most of us are outside of that kind of pre-contemplation stage. Most of us sit in the state of contemplation where we know that there's maybe a better plan, right? Maybe there are healthier things that we could do. Maybe we know that, when I end my day with a glass of wine and I wake up with coffee and I eat a high processed, delicious cinnamon roll for breakfast, by noon, I feel like crap, right? And a lot of us have an awareness that the things that we're putting into our body may be contributing to low energy, cognitive fatigue. And we're kind of in this contemplation zone of knowing that maybe there's something better, but maybe not feeling confident that we have the tools to actually start implementing change. That's where that preparation phase comes next, is thinking through, all right, I've identified that there's something that I would like to change or something that I would like to do differently. Thinking through, how am I actually going to be able to implement that change? What am I going to have to change as far as my daily structure, my daily habits to try and make this stick? From that, we move into action. And once we've implemented that change, we move into this maintenance phase. What I really would like to encourage us is, I think many of us on this call are probably more in the action and maintenance phase, right? We're already making healthy choices. There's probably already changes that we've tried to institute to try and get ourselves into a healthier state, right? The fact that we had the motivation to jump into this conversation today tells me that this is likely a group of people that are living in the action maintenance area. And that is a really great place to be. But what I would love to plant the seed in is that maintenance is not a place to stay forever. When we get into maintenance, this cycle of change is designed to be a continual process of curiosity and looking for improvement. As a female, your hormones change decade after decade after decade. The things that your body needed you to do in your 20s are very different than what your body needs for you to be doing in your 60s. There are general themes that apply across the board, right? We know that avoiding ultra-processed food, trying to increase the amount of whole foods that we're eating, natural fibers, we know that across the board, those things are healthy regardless of life phase and stage. And when we get down to more of the kind of nitpicky details of trying to optimize how our body is performing, we need to be in a constant process of curiosity, of asking why we're doing a thing, if what we're doing is meeting our goals, and being willing to continually ask that question and adjust to make sure that we are always showing up as the best version of ourselves and pursuing health throughout our entire life.
Yeah, absolutely. And recognizing that, I really love how you said, your body is going to do what it needs you to do as a female in your 20s. It's going to look very different in your 60s. And I think too, part of the, you can call it a hitch if you want to, that people can get stuck in is that, the college athlete, right? They're in the gym, they're working out 30 to 40 hours a week. They are perfectly fine-tuned nutrition. And then that college athlete graduates college, goes to graduate school, gets a career, 9 to 5. Now they're 40 with kids, and they've been able to work out that whole time, but now they're still trying to work out, and they injure their shoulder, and then they injure their hip, and then their knee, and then now they're stuck in this. They're trying to apply these rules that they've lived by since their 20s, and now they're applying those rules for a 20-year-old to a 45-year-old, and they're not working. They're not synergizing, and they're not clicking. And so a lot of that can then create some of these mental health symptoms we see in the room when we are working with people.
I think it's that lens that really helps me prioritize why we need to focus on intention.
Yeah.
It is so easy to err on either side of the spectrum. On one spectrum being the, I don't care, I'm going to do this out of convenience, it's working well enough. The other side of that pendulum swings to this point of such rigid structure of rules of I do or I don't, or I can or I can't. And the goal is to find a way to live in a healthy space in the middle, where that we have compassion for ourselves, we're practicing curiosity, we are constantly in the process of evolving our understanding of what the healthiest way of living could be, and then working to apply that in a compassionate way to our day-to-day life. I was just watching the chat, Steven, I saw a question pop up that I just wanted to address really quick before we move on to the slide, which is why do some people move through this more quickly than others?
Yeah.
Why do some people get stuck in pre-contemplation or contemplation where other people can just blast through the cycle over and over and over and over again?
Yeah.
Do you have any insight or anything you'd like to share in thinking through that question?
Well, I have a couple of opinions that might be too long for this.
Maybe we can weave that in as we move along, because I think that's a very important part. But
I feel like it's Pandora's box, but go for it, and then we can move ahead.
It is a little bit, and as we move ahead, the short answer is, so part of why I wanted to be a psychiatrist was the process of coaching is what felt most natural to me when I was working with clients. There is no amount of knowing as a great coach that ever institutes change or creates a great gymnast if there isn't a shared vision and a shared understanding and a shared motivation of how we're going to get from one place to the other. There is no amount of beating somebody over the head that moves them from pre-contemplation to contemplation. As you dive into kind of the research around the pathway of change, there are different components of conversation that we may lean into if we're working with people in kind of that more coaching capacity of how we might frame our questions to plant seeds. The short answer is telling somebody else what to do is never going to work. Telling yourself what to do is never going to work. If you are beating yourself up over the head trying to do a thing, it's rarely going to last. It's rarely going to stick. And that's where asking the question of why do I want to do this in the first place, may not speed up the process, but allows change to stick in a healthier way as we move forward.
I think it allows, thanks for getting that next slide. I think it allows you to get in that space to talk about that with yourself. Part of these principles, some of you folks on the call may or may not be familiar with the term motivational interviewing. And a lot of the times motivational interviewing is when you're in kind of the therapeutic setting and the therapist, the clinician is getting the person to elicit information and come to the realization on their own and answer their own question real time. And so I think an important part of adding this to our slide deck is a lot of the times we have these constant conversations with ourselves. We either bully ourselves in the kitchen or we bully ourselves in the gym because we didn't bully ourselves in the kitchen. And MaryEllen and I were just talking the other day. It's like, it's okay to eat ice cream, but then you go to the gym and you typically ride 3 miles on the bike, but because you ate ice cream, now you're riding 15 miles on the bike. And going back to what we discussed earlier is the intent. And so part of these questions, these examples we noticed is being able to guide and observe your thoughts and not to bulldoze them, is being present and aware. And I think another important portion, and that's why I selected it here, what matters most about how I eat. Mm-hmm. Then getting to the deeper root is how can we attach what we put on our plate or even how we approach the kitchen with our value system. Mm-hmm. So getting into that conversation, being able to attach motivation to our value system. Okay, someone comes to your office or my office and they talk about low energy, they talk about low mood, they talk about thoughts of worthlessness and things like that, and then we get into the discussion. Tell me about your day, walk me through morning until night, and they glaze over their meals, and then we redirect them and say, we didn't really talk about breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. Can you walk me through those? Mm-hmm. And, it's ultra processed drive-through breakfast. It's a high sugar lunch because they're kind of feeling like garbage from the drive-through breakfast, and the cycle goes on. And then the magic happens when you just allow them to sit in that for a moment. Mm-hmm. And this has happened to me on a number of occasions. I can't speak for you though. The client will then say, well, I want to be able to play with my grandkids. Mm-hmm. I want to be able to spend more time with them, and I want to see them graduate high school, see them graduate college. That's the value system. And so then we can really tie, then you can tie behaviors back to their values. Then you can tie nutrition back to their values. You can tie essentially anything that's important to that person back to their values. And so when we're in this conversation and we're listening to ourselves and we're talking about, how can we engage with sustainable, healthy habits for life, it's okay, then let's start having the conversation with ourselves in terms of a value system.
Yeah. I think when we step back and look through the lens of value and intention, this is where, again, if the point that we're at is the jumping off point of doing the right thing for the wrong reason, it's not that that's the wrong place to start. But there is a point where I eat broccoli as a way of punishing myself, where doing the right thing for the wrong reason is harmful, at least at a psychological component. It wasn't that eating the broccoli was bad for me, but the reason I did it, even though it was a healthy thing that I did, I don't know why we're harping on broccoli so much, but
here we are.
If eating the broccoli is a thing that I do out of self-hatred, compared to eating the broccoli out of food as fuel, this is something my body needs right now, the same action viewed through a different lens of intention leads to a very physiologic stress response in my body. We optimize the benefit from our healthy habits when we do them from a space of self-love, self-compassion, when we do them for the right reasons.
I think we
both got trigger happy.
There we go. Teamwork makes the dream work. Small goals and big shifts. Do you want to jump into SMART goals here?
Sure. I think overall, when we're thinking about change, it's just important to think about, we've all lived through New Year's. We've all made big, beautiful New Year's resolutions. And there's not a lot of us who February rolls around and we're still on the resolution bandwagon, right? So many people commit to really great decisions on New Year's, right? Like, this is the year I'm going to stop drinking. January, New Year's Eve, last drink, I'm done. Here on out, clean and sober.
Yep.
Really great idea. Love that idea. But going from a daily habit that was part of my social life, my way of enjoying life, my relaxation was built into my daily routine, trying to change a habit that has become pervasive in my day-to-day life and then just take it away and say, like, rip off the Band-Aid, I'm done, rarely does that work. That is the mindset behind SMART goals, right? Number one, if we don't have a clear goal, we're never going to get there, right? The natural law of the universe is that things don't just magically become more organized. The opposite is true. Entropy is real. Without intention, the system will dissolve into chaos. SMART goals, be specific. Pick a singular, trackable goal. Make sure that it's measurable. Did I do it? Did I not do it? Depending on the goal that you're picking, did I do it 50%? Would I give myself an A for the day? Was today more of a C? Was there a reason I give myself a C for the day? Is it achievable? And this is where cutting things into bite size or like a stepwise approach. Maybe my goal is to live to be 100. That's a great goal. Maybe let's make it 105. And I know that what I'm doing right now is probably going to get me to 80. Paired with, there's a million things that I could be doing right now to optimize my life. And if I were to just close my eyes and commit that the moment I'm opening them, all of those things, from here on out, I'm doing them, it's not going to work out. And the stress and anger I'm going to experience at my failures because I set unachievable, unrealistic goals is going to probably get my lifespan from 80 to 75, right? Stress has a real big impact on our brain and our body. So make it specific, make it measurable, make it realistic, make it achievable, make it relevant. And this is, again, through that lens of intention, thinking through, why am I trying to implement this right now anyways, and make it timely, right? When am I going to do this? Why am I choosing this timeline? And again, all of this needs to be viewed through the lens of the intention. If we are clear on our why, being able to pick the appropriate goals, being able to practice kindness and compassion as we work to implement these, as we work to move in the direction of healthier habits, sets us up to be successful.
One of the things I wanted to add, because I forget exactly what you said, but it was right around measurable and achievable. And what came to mind was kind of the three C's that I think about with this, and that's consistency, confidence, and credibility. And frequently, I've seen this. I've experienced it myself. And when a person can consistently build confidence and credibility with themselves, these SMART goals here that we're discussing almost become, I'm careful to use the word automatic, but these SMART goals almost become just kind of a lifestyle, as opposed of Mount Everest we're trying to climb. I'm just pulling an example out of thin air, to lose 100 pounds.
Yeah.
That's a very ambitious goal. And it's been done before. We've, seen stories on social media and the news and things like that. But how can we break that down to something achievable, something manageable, something measurable that we can track and test and go, okay, so what I did for the last 3 days, is that doable? Yeah, great. Let's keep doing that type of thing. So consistency, confidence, and being able to build credibility with yourself can go a long way.
Yeah, building that confidence. I think the other thing in the world of behavior change, it's valuable to know that adding is much easier than subtracting. And if we add things into a routine that is already set, the chance of that being able to stick goes up significantly. Which is, again, if we know there's a thing that maybe we want to change, maybe there's an unhealthy habit that we're trying to do less of, this is where asking why is really important. Because before I want to take that thing away, what I want is to replace the why with something healthier. And if I take away the why, or the reason that's driving the unhealthy thing that I would like to do less of, it's going to be a lot easier when the emotional needs, the physiologic need, whatever that thing was doing for me, when that is replaced with something healthier. It's much easier to subtract in the future if I've already replaced what that thing was doing for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw it back over to you, Steve.
Excellent.
Take it away in the world of PERMA.
PERMA, yeah. PERMA is another approach to be able to, again, approach the plate with a healthy mindset, and just kind of going through them briefly. Positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. I think there's a couple here I really want to hone in on, and because of my background as a licensed marriage and family therapist, we are trained in systems and the whole environment of a relationship. And so I want to touch on relationships and the meaning portion. I think everyone can agree on this universal blanket statement. We repeat what feels good. It's a pretty basic approach to many things in life. And although cinnamon rolls, they do feel good to eat, we don't always appreciate the outcome of eating those cinnamon rolls more frequently than maybe we should. And so we ask ourselves a couple of questions about relationships. And again, that's having the kindness and the curiosity and the openness and the awareness to even be able to begin to have that conversation with yourself. So again, the relationship we have with ourselves, the relationship we have with the past, and the relationship we want with ourselves in the future, and how those things impact what we put on our plate. And that can really, that's another Pandora's box that we don't have enough time for today. But being able to get into the mindset of engaging yourself with these conversations, and being able to really take a step back and be curious and kind, and be able to reevaluate your relationship with those things. We talked a little bit about meaning earlier, and being able to attach, we'll say, behaviors to, and a couple of examples are: your meaning will more likely than not change decade to decade, right? You're going to value different things, in your 20s, you're going to value something different in your 30s, in your 50s, et cetera, et cetera. And being able to have an open and honest relationship with yourself, to recognize and accept that. And oftentimes when there is that dissonance, or that things aren't necessarily agreeing with each other, then that creates stress. It can create stress. It can create anxiety. It can create self-destructive behaviors. It can create these circumstances to where people then begin to rely on their coping mechanisms. Some coping mechanisms are less healthy than others. And again, it goes back to this relationship with ourselves. Is can we be kind to ourselves? Can we be compassionate to ourselves? I remember working with a client a number of years ago, and they were really struggling with this particular relationship. And after a few months of working with them, I kind of sat back in my chair, and I asked them, well, have you given yourself permission? And they looked at me like I was nuts. And I repeated the question. I said, well, have you given yourself permission to be upset with this person, or to experience other emotions with this person? And long story short, there was a complex history, and so we started getting into this conversation of giving yourself permission. And what we discovered along the journey was that this person became so restrictive because of their history. They lost the relationship with themselves. They developed an eating disorder. They developed other negative or relatively self-harming coping mechanisms. And being able to look at that from that relational perspective, and some people may kind of differ with me here, but I would argue that our relationship with ourselves is the absolute most important relationship. And when we can't be flexible in that, and we lose meaning, and we lose engagement with ourselves, it's almost no surprise that we aren't able to live with healthy habits, let alone a healthy relationship with our plate.
I really like the PERMA mindset because of how applicable it can be in really broad strokes, right? We can zoom all the way out. We can look at our life as a whole. We can view it through this lens to see what things are living in alignment with our sense of meaning and purpose and our intention. And we can take that same lens and we can zoom all the way in, almost like a microscope, on our individual specific habits to see if there are specific components of part of our daily habits or daily routine that might be pulling us out of alignment with meaning and purpose. And when we find those things that are out of alignment, again, this is not a reason to pull out our hatchet and start banging ourselves over the head with it. But it is an opportunity to ask, why this? Why now? Practicing curiosity. I firmly believe that all of us are doing the best we can in the situation that we're in with the skills that we have. And oftentimes the things that served me well last year, 10 years ago, were the best thing that I could have been doing at that moment. And maybe I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. And maybe my situation is different and my skills have evolved, hopefully, which means what was good for me 10 years ago may be pulling me out of alignment now. So using this as a lens
Most likely is.
Yes. We are constantly evolving creatures, and we need to give ourselves permission to be curious about why we do things, why we think, why we feel things, and use this lens as a way of evaluating if this thing is continuing to serve me. Not because I need to beat myself up or because this thing is wrong, but because as I evolve, what served me before may not continue to serve me in the future.
One of things I used to find myself saying, change is the only constant in life.
Yes. Which I think really nicely bleeds into this next slide, which is the conversation around appreciation over perfection. progress over perfection, this process of being able to be curious, to ask why, not in a way of beating ourselves up or finding some way to, persecute ourselves and activate all of our stress response, but thinking of our bodies as a science experiment, right? I love Taco Tuesday. It's great. But everything I put in my mouth has side effects, right? Some of them are great, right? Like you can eat healthy food and the side effects may be improved energy, not having an afternoon crash and having the nutrients you need to build strong muscles, right? Great side effects. Taco Tuesday also has side effects. And I have chosen to continue to engage in Taco Tuesday because of a risk-benefit analysis.
Yep.
Do side effects happen when I put those tacos in? Not immediately. The immediate experience is fantastic. The after effect is not as great. The trade-off is, right? This is where being intentional or being aware of why we're making decisions, right?
Yeah.
Tacos for me are much more than just a food. As a food, they're fantastic. It's a combination of a lot of things that I love. But Taco Tuesday is also very relational, right? It is a reason that the entire family gets around a table on a Tuesday evening and we have a family dinner and a check-in. I can't say that happens on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. Life gets busy, right? But Taco Tuesday is like this shared thing that we all enjoy doing. Are there healthier food choices than tacos? Yeah, sure, probably. But at the end of the day, right, we cannot take out the additional value beyond just.
I'm sorry, Dr. Eller. I got to make a comment. Peter, I love the comment, broccoli tacos.
We're not doing it. I want you to know I was also watching, and there's actually cinnamon rolls in this chat now too, or cinnamon on broccoli. And yes, broccoli should show up in all sorts of places, but not on my tacos and not on Tuesdays. And I share that story simply as a lens of understanding. This is a process of progress. The goal is not perfection. One of my favorite quotes that one of my mentors taught me is perfection breeds dysfunction. The goal is good enough. This was told to me as I was going through therapy training and something that I've repeated to myself frequently as a parent. And I think applies as we're looking at the relationship that we have with ourselves, especially when it comes to trying to optimize and live as healthy as we can. The goal is good enough.
Yeah.
And if I continue to strive to do good enough every day, I'm going to continually make progress towards the ultimate goal of nourishing my body, allowing myself to live as healthy of a life as possible, while also not erring in the side of like the extremes, right? But allowing myself to live in alignment with my meaning and purpose, one of which includes fueling my body well, balanced with social connection, valuable relationships, enjoyment, being able to fully engage in an experience, and doing all of those things through the lens of meaning, through purpose, and with a little side of moderation.
There you go. One thing I want to add to this, to kind of put a little bow on this slide, is in terms of appreciation over perfection. The coach once told me, we either succeed or we learn.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to I guess just kind of like flip that on your head for a second and think about that, that totally changes your relationship with effort, with input, with failure if you don't achieve your goal. Okay, that's okay. You didn't get your goal. That's fine. What did you learn? Focus on what you learned and then be able to apply that when you revisit that goal.
Yeah. I love that mindset, because what is built in, without stating it in that sentence, is that I had to come back and be curious and evaluate if what I did helped me get closer to the goal that I was working towards. And I think that's the piece that often gets left out of these conversations. Is it is so easy, if you look in the nutrition space, for somebody to just generate for you a protocol of eat this at this time of day, blah, blah, blah. These are the safe foods. These are the good ones. Don't ever touch these things. Throw some intermittent fasting in there, throw some keto, you pick the thing, right? It is easy to err on the side of these overly structured, incredibly regimented, concrete rules that don't leave space for compassion, and don't necessarily come in with that built-in idea that everything I do in the process of moving towards a healthier goal requires me to check in to see if what I am doing is helping me achieve my mission, to live in alignment with meaning and purpose. And guess what? Sometimes I'm going to mess up.
Yeah.
Sometimes if we think about that circle of change, there's going to be periods where we relapse, right? Where maybe I've spent the last 6 months, I did really good. I've avoided a lot of these like more ultra processed foods. I'm feeling healthy. And then I decide to take an all-inclusive trip to, I don't know, the Caribbean. And there's really great food everywhere.
Yep.
And it's all included, including like an ice cream bar all the time.
Yep.
And is that failure, right? Is that failure when I'm on vacation to enjoy the local cuisine, to taste new things, to experience new things, to do these things in the world of relationship and experience? I think the best answer to that is no.
Yeah.
I think we need to give ourselves space and permission. And when we realize that life is stressful, work stress can increase, being able to eat well often requires a lot of prep work, a lot of planning. It is not easy. And again, this is the idea of entropy, right? Like if we're not planning ahead, it is so easy to regress back to a point that requires less effort to maintain.
Yeah.
And if we continually remind ourselves and view ourselves with compassion through the lens of doing the best we can in the situation we're in with the skills we have, it allows us to have grace for ourselves when the best we can do right now may be running through the local fast food restaurant and getting something because nothing may be better, or that may be better than nothing, and life was too stressful. I'm married, I got kids, I got a job. I didn't have time to prep healthy food today.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make this choice and I'm going to give myself grace.
And at the same time, I was just going to say, giving yourself grace and recognizing that you're not required in those circumstances. You're not required to fall down that slippery slope and to persecute yourself. You're not required to do that. And you can reflect on that situation. You recognize, hey, I got a busy schedule. I'm a real person. The age old saying, we are our own worst critic. We don't have to subscribe to that. We don't have to throw ourselves down in the dumps because life happens. One of the things I want to touch on with you real quick, MaryEllen, I want to make time for Q&A. We have 14 minutes left and a couple of slides. Let's touch on the rest of these slides briefly, and then dive into some questions. How does that sound?
Perfect. I will do my best.
No, trust me, we're both guilty here.
Yeah, I think the good news is that for a lot of the content that follows, a lot of this has been woven into this conversation already. And again, the thought of trying to build lasting, enduring change, to build habits that become routine, that move us towards the direction of health, again, has to be viewed through the lens of making small changes day by day, making sure that they're measurable, that they're actionable, that I can actually monitor if I've reached my goal. And if I think, or if I do the thing and I actually achieve or implement what I was planning, did it actually achieve what I was expecting for it to do? So constantly just getting into that more scientific mindset of asking a question or really testing a hypothesis, right? Like I'm going to do this trial, I'm going to implement this thing, and then I'm going to follow up to see if it did what I thought it would do. That is the foundation for building long-lasting change. And doing that through the lens of self-compassion and grace helps us to move in the direction of health in a much more rapid way.
Which I think is a perfect segue to this next slide, with going from there, that compassion and grace kind mindset, to then, okay, I've established that I'm comfortable now addressing these types of relationships with myself. They might be new, they might be a little uncomfortable, but that's okay, because that's what I need to do for me to get into that growth mindset. I'm learning, I'm not failing. I either succeeded with that SMART goal that I set, or I learned what to do to succeed at the next SMART goal that I set. And so that back into that test and practice. And, keep me on the rails here, MaryEllen, but I do think that everyone has the ability to thrive in these mindsets. Did you want to add anything else to this slide before we go ahead?
I think if we continue on, we're going to get to a little more of the meat, which is kind of thinking through kind of the more practical application to all of this. We've spent a lot of time kind of planting the seeds of thinking through, starting to ask why, or practicing more curiosity about why we do things. I think we need to practice as much curiosity as to why we would want to change anything as well. There's a lot of really great motivation or great reasons why people may want to make dietary changes or start looking to optimize their nutrition. And I think asking why and getting clear on why is critical when it comes to making sure we're doing the right things for us right now through as healthy of a lens as possible. Again, sometimes we do the right thing, maybe not for the right reason. And sometimes that's where we need to start. But if we can start shifting our mindset to paying more attention and doing things intentionally through a lens of self-compassion, being clear on why we are wanting to do these things. Like you mentioned, there's many people who come asking for help because what they were doing was good enough for them, but now they're a parent and they're seeing that they want their life for their children or their grandchildren to be different. And that's the motivation for them to start to change. We could sit and argue as to whether or not those are the right things for the wrong reasons, right? In my mind, the right thing for the right reason is always because of a curiosity through a lens of self-compassion for myself. If I'm taking good care of myself, I will be able to do my best to show up well for the people who I've been called to love the most. And that's where these conversations are critical.
I think that's beautiful.
Is there anything on this slide that you'd like to dig into a little more?
We don't have time, unfortunately.
A lot of things I'd like to say.
Michelle, next time we'll have to do a 90-minute session. In this part of, I saw a comment earlier in the chat, I believe right when we first started, or maybe middle of the way through, and talking about, I saw the comment and it sparked me because I knew it was on the last slide and I wanted to make a comment and I didn't. But part of reauthoring our story, everyone, I started the example at your grandmother's table with the cinnamon roll. Everyone lives their narrative, and their narrative is very powerful and it's very reassuring, it's comforting. And we all have that story, that narrative with food as well. Some people grow up and just from day one, food is fuel. Mm-hmm. They know that everyone knows if you put diesel in a gas engine, bad things are going to happen relatively quickly. And so, when people start that process from day one, it's relatively simple. They have this mindset, they adopt food as fuel, and their intent is because, well, it's just what I do. This is normal. And some don't grow up like that. And that's okay. And being able to recognize what comforts us, how can we still incorporate that comfort? How can we still incorporate the celebration? How can we still incorporate all of those things that are so important to us, myself as well, in a way that is kind, that a way that allows us to find the intention to achieve our goals that is still attached with our values?
Yeah. The short answer is the conversation around food is so complex. Food that is available to us is scientifically engineered to cause dramatic spikes in dopamine. It's designed to be addicting.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we crave things like Twinkies and cinnamon rolls more than we crave things like broccoli. Not because one is a better nutritional source, but because one of those has been scientifically engineered and modified to really play on our brain's reward system. Which is why just knowing is often not enough. Just like oftentimes when we look at, again, the things that as a society we've decided to all agree on are bad, like substance use and illicit substances, right? We're not using them because we think they're good for us. Our brain gets addicted. it gets addicted to food in the exact same way.
Yeah.
And while beating yourself up over the head is never going to be enough to get you off of an illicit substance, it's also not going to be enough motivation to get you away from food that your brain has been trained to become addicted to. Our society reinforces it. Our emotions reinforce it. Our brain's dopamine system reinforces it. Day-to-day life, constantly, we are given reminders of food, advertisement, everywhere. It's everywhere. And that's where asking the brain why, right? Like when I'm craving ice cream, asking why. Not because ice cream is evil or bad, or I'm going to spontaneously combust if I eat ice cream or something like this. But it's important to start decoupling the behavior from the thing that my brain is actually telling me that I need. Exactly. Maybe what I want is some sugar. Maybe my sugar's low. Maybe that's why I'm craving ice cream. Or maybe it's I've had a really rough, sucky day and I'm feeling low, I'm feeling exhausted, and my brain is craving dopamine. It's craving connection. And one of the quickest ways to get that is an ultra-processed sugar. Ice cream's great, and I have great memories eating it, right? There are reasons why our brain craves and why we want things. And being more clear on those things helps us start changing that relationship, practicing kindness, but also helping us lay the foundation for more long-lasting change. And doing it through a lens of not beating ourselves up, not through this lens of I'm not good enough or what I'm doing right now is evil or bad or whatever. But doing things because I want to be kind to myself and I want to lay the foundation for living a long, healthy life in alignment with meaning and purpose.
Yeah. I couldn't have said that better if I tried. Michelle, do we want to address a couple of questions?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to thank you both for being here for such a positive conversation. I know a lot of time when we think about behavior change, it does become a negative, like not a pat on the back, but more like a little punch in the face for all the bad choices that we're making. And I appreciate you talking about the relationship that we have with ourselves in the past, accepting that we are not in the past anymore. We are here today, and our future needs to look like. I appreciate both of you and both of your insights. I do want to very quickly share your contact information if people want to get in touch. And so I'm going to put in both of your LinkedIn profiles.
Thank you.
And then I also would love to go through some of the questions. So in fact, while I do that, I'm going to go ahead and get the first question up on the screen. So let me turn to questions only. All right, here's one question. The issues I'm experiencing with this session is the linear process. None of this falls in a linear realm below the thinking, understanding level. Any thoughts or ideas of how somebody could go a little bit deeper beyond this linear thinking? Maybe an exercise or a website or a resource where you might find help.
I would just say yes. Number one, I think that experience is incredibly pervasive. This is never linear, and it's never going to be as simple as we try to make it in 15 cute little slides. This process is rough. It is bumpy. It is cyclical. It is not beautiful. It is not linear. And that's where I think the importance for us in this conversation was talking more through the lens of how we view this really rocky, bumpy road. And how we can practice kindness to ourselves while we continue to work through implementing change. If the question is more directed towards like, where do I go next, right? There is so much misinformation floating around, or like, what is a healthy choice, right? Is a healthy choice these 20 supplements that I can pay, $1,000 a month, and I'm promised that I'm going to get all the necessary nutritional building blocks? Is it a specific diet protocol, and maybe there's some modifications we need to make because of a specific disease process? The FullPlateLiving platform is a really, really great jumping off point if what we're looking for is more specific education or information on what the next steps could be. But that process of this, or that experience of this journey being non-linear, of being bumpy and cyclical, and it's full of like mountains and valleys and rivers and floods and all sorts of crap, that is unfortunately real life. And when we live real life, we have to practice real compassion.
Very true. Compassion is big. I like this question. I think it's a very good one. And I think, I would love to hear your answer. How do you help people with self-reflection when it is a muscle they seldom do, or reluctance to share?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump on this one. So the self-reflection, excuse me, I would approach it with the analogy of it's very similar to flossing or going to the gym. It's one of these things where you're not going to see results until you've been doing it for an extended period of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If I don't floss for 12 months and then I go to my dentist and I floss really, really hard the night before, I'm going to show up with really inflamed gums. And my dentist is going to probably say, you don't floss very often, do you? And I'm going to say, I did last night. And he's going to say, yeah, I can tell. And it's going to be inflamed, and it's going to be this tough environment, and it's going to be painful. So with the self-reflection, it's a muscle you need to exercise regularly, and allowing yourself to have that self-reflection in a number of different platforms. The simplest one is writing down your thoughts. I used to work with a number of people writing down their thoughts and simply having the different touch points of learning. And so the tactile feedback with the pencil in your hand and your palm on the paper, and hearing the pencil write the words on the paper, and seeing those letters on the paper, what you put together. So all of a sudden, you've gone from this abstract thing bouncing around in your brain for a day, a lot of days, a lot of years. You have this abstract thing that you haven't been able to see or experience, and now all of a sudden it's concrete, and you have something to look at and reflect on. And a number I remember one client, he wrote down a couple of thoughts, and he picked up the paper and he looked at me and he goes, "Steven, why'd you make me do this?" And I said, "I didn't make you do anything. I asked if it would be helpful, and you indulged." And then he replied and looked at me and said, "I don't like what I see." And I said, "What would you like to do different? What do you control that you want to do different?" And that's kind of where our conversation really kind of took a hard left turn. But and those are these certain things that stick out to us, and simply being able to go from that abstract thing that a bunch of neurotransmitters firing in your brain that's you can't see, you can't feel, you can't hear, and then it's concrete. I would say that's the simplest, easiest way to start.
Making it concrete. I like that. Well, I know that we had a few other questions, but we also want to be mindful of everybody's time. And I think we've covered most of them actually while we were going through the workshop. And so I appreciate both of your insights. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. If you don't mind putting in the chat something that you enjoyed about this workshop, maybe a new thought or idea that you're going to ponder about for the rest of the week, I'd love for you to do that right now, and we can look at it later. Again, thank you for your time. We will have a recording coming out after the workshop, and I hope to see you in our next workshop next month. Thank you both for your time. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks again, everyone.